Hey folks, it's Kozzi here, drafting for Pick 1 Pack 1 with this relatively unusual deck. It's definitely not a classic archetype by any stretch of the imagination, Skycrag Fliers deck, but I don't know, I think it's kind of sweet. I'm looking forward to seeing how it runs. Like, it's not as though we've just jammed two colours together and see what happens. We still have a very clear plan. We have our fire representing some very strong aggression cards, and then we have Primal that gives us the evasion. And so between aggression plus evasion, we're hoping that that equals a win. Maybe. But we'll see how we go. I've been quickly looking over this deck list, getting prepared rather for these couple of matches, and I'm a little bit dubious about our splash here into Shadow. The reality is this monument could still need a Shadow Sigil to activate once we get past 5 power, but by the same token, if we get to 5 power, then we should be able to cast everything in our deck except for these two. So I think it's something I'm willing to try for the time being, see how we go, but it's definitely something on my short list to reconsider and to readjust for. Beyond that, I kind of look forward to seeing something unorthodox, and I hope that our game plan plays out of just dropping a clock, giving it evasion, and hopefully we'll just have quite a few really good races. That's what I'd like from this video series. And just to see the certain ways that a limited match can unfurl. Oftentimes you can just get caught up into a ground battle where it's all clogged up and you're trying to find the biggest creature. And with this one, I think we'll be trying to just disregard that entirely and get into a really solid race. We're pretty heavily flooded already here, so even though we have two main colours, I feel as though I want to ship this back. We don't have much action in our early turns, and if we're looking to try and set up a race, then that's not where we want to be. So we'll throw that one back and see if we happen to get anything better, and this is a lot better for us. 2 into 3 into 4, you can't go too wrong with that. And even better, I think this is my Film Stranger. Yeah, it is. So that means I've got my Shadow Sigil sorted as well. Yeah, this is really quite a fantastic hand. Nothing that I'm super excited to give flying, but it's still a benefit. And so in this scenario, I can choose either to keep developing my board with something that could plausibly trade off with his Vulture, which I'm not a fan of, or I could just draw more cards and see my better hand. I definitely don't want to be using my Ice Sprite here. So I think we'll just go for the Wisdom. It allows me to sit back, hold up my torch in case he plays something scary, and try and dig deeper into my deck to find something better. Yeah, I'm definitely happy taking one here. So it looks like my opponent Onion is probably missing a colour. I can't imagine that they'd be playing exclusively a Shadow deck. And I think we just want to keep developing and keeping the pressure up. This now represents an additional torch, which means I have virtual 9 damage, unless he has a silence effect. So that means he's effectively on 12 life right now. Which also probably means that attacking in mightn't be the best thing unless he happens to have a lightning storm or something like that. Because I'm well and truly on the beatdown right now. If that's a new phrase to you of who's on the beatdown, I'm actually referring to an article that is quite famous in Magic circles. It was written by a fellow called Mike Flores quite a while ago. And the notion behind it is that in any given game, someone is the aggressor and someone's the defender. And where a lot of games go wrong is people can't quite work out where their role is for that and which one to prioritize. I think what I want to do here, just before I go on to a game theory point, is to attack in. He'll take 5 going down to 16. And then I need to decide whether I'd rather use my Ice Sprite to tie down his trainer, hold up one of my torches, or just trust my Acolyte. And I think I'm happy playing the Ice Sprite here and forcing him onto having some kind of removal. So yeah, the idea is that in any given game, someone is the aggressor and someone is the defender. Because if both people are attacking at the same time, well then someone invariably is wrong. Because only one person is going to win by playing a race. The permafrost on my Rebel Illuminator is a bit of a pain. I think in this scenario I definitely do want to bolt his Serpent Trainer now. Serpent Trainer getting in will represent a blocker that will trade off, and so it's value that I can't really afford to let him have. Sure, so he's cycling out a Levitate. And so what then really matters in any match is, given the fact that we know that two aggressive opponents, only one of them can be correct, is part of the skill of these card games is to work out, well, are you the aggressive one who would win, all other things being equal, or are you the person who would lose in that scenario? And if you know that you're going to lose in the case of a race, well, then it's your responsibility to slow down and to start to manage the board and to try and play the more controlling role. Even if your deck is as aggressive as anything, it's your responsibility to try and find that, because all other things being equal, if we could lay out all the cards, you're going to lose anyway. And it was really quite revolutionary when it was first discussed. It was something that people hadn't considered much at all. So I could get aggressive now and play a piercing shot. That plays around him having things like the cloak as a piece of equipment. Yeah, I feel as though I can take my value now. What's he got? Okay. I'm glad that he's choosing to backlash that over my torch, and it gives me the opportunity to just keep developing my board then. I'm very, very glad that I chose to keep up a Flying Defender. So, if he gets through, he has a 2-power blocker. I'll be attacking with 7 damage, which isn't enough to get through, so I don't think there's any scenario where it's not worth blocking here. If I had lethal on the attack around, then it would have been worth it. And so here I have him at 8. The problem with giving a creature flying is I know that Primal has a spell that does 5 damage to a flying creature. So I think for right now, I'll just take my time with it. I know that I can remove whatever extra blocker he has, and I'll give his creature Levitate so I don't expose myself to that, and I have my chance just to see my extra card. That could well be wrong, but I think if I would have found a third creature there, then I would have been in a very good position. The only thing that this attack punishes me for is if he has another one of those backlashes. If not, I still have a board position. But no, it worked out well. And so yeah, this is a really good example here, is my opponent kept playing very, very aggressive on the assumption that they had enough resources to win that aggressive match, and I feel as though they would have done a lot better. We could see that I was running out of gas pretty quickly, and if they would have stayed back and traded off the resources instead, and basically put down the threat to me, going, look, it's your job to keep this initiative up and to keep the inertia happening for you, then I think I could have been in a little bit of strife. I would have had to play it a lot more conservatively, so I couldn't have gotten within bolt range, within torch range rather. And yeah, life could have been a lot harder for me. And so I think in card games like Eternal in general, one of the biggest things that you can learn how to do is to assess what your role is in the given match, which is just a fancy term for saying work out if we're to both attack, who would actually win. We're one power short of a great hand. We can buy ourselves a little bit of time if we do get shorted on power. So yeah, I feel as though this is a keepable hand. It's a little bit dubious because we're on the play. And so for that reason, I think I'll take the opportunity to cycle this levitate as soon as possible. And now we play the nervous waiting game. If we draw another power, our hand's going to be amazing. And so because of that, I'm absolutely certain to want to cycle here. Still short. As far as the factions, I want to get to double Primal as soon as possible. The reason why is because I have 2 Wisdom of the Elders. Granted, I won't be able to play it next turn because I'd need to draw both a Sigil and a Wisdom of the Elders. But I think, I know myself, I know I forget things that I've thought through earlier, so I'd rather do it now and make sure that I've got that box checked. Fortunately, we're not getting punished too much for being power screwed. A 1-turn clock is something, or one power creature isn't going to scare me too much. So we have a choice here. We can either keep developing our board or hold up the removal, or we could get aggressive and play the Katana, draw a card, and attack in, offer a trade, which I doubt they'll take. I imagine they're much more likely to have the quick draw equipment. I think our first priority right now is to draw out of this, so even though it's aggressive... Ooh. Well, that's one extra draw step without a Sigil that we've managed to avoid. I'll be holding back in future turns with this as I continue to develop my board. I didn't want to take the risk because he's playing Shadow of just having no him having removal and me just getting no value out of that whatsoever. And we're still trading 4 damage for 4 damage, so I feel as though that's an okay decision. Now I'll definitely be holding him back. This is unfortunate. So what I need to think through is my Lightning Strike can kill his Paladin, but it can't kill his Thornbeast. So I don't have to worry too much about this guy quite yet. I could offer a double block here, which is effectively a 2 for 3 because he's also had to sack his Vulture in order to get this guy up to being 5 power. And I don't want to be offering up my Rakana Outlaw. That's the guy who's going to get me back into it. Guy? It's a girl, I think. Yeah, that's the girl who's going to be getting me back into it. Especially if I can give her flying. That'll be phenomenal. So yeah, I think we just sit back, we offer up that double block to try and slow down his board development. Accept the fact that we're in a really tight spot because we haven't seen that third piece of power. And we just hope that they don't have a trick, because if they have a trick, we're truly blown out. Well, that's very bad news for us. That's a lot of value for us to be losing right when we couldn't afford to be losing too much. I think here we're probably looking at playing the Stonescar and the Torch to try and deal with this Thornbeast, and then dealing with the rest of this as we go. If we draw a second power, we can play the Outlaw plus the Lightning Strike. Otherwise, we could play the Sky Snapper and represent a trade. These aren't the best options, but they're the best I have. But if we don't get rid of this Thorn Beast, we're going to die regardless. He didn't have a stop there, so I feel comfortable throwing the Bolt in right now. And now we cross our fingers and hope he doesn't have a Dark Return, because if he does, we don't have removal that can deal with it. What's likely to happen here is he won't attack him with his 3/3, he'll just attack him with those two, and I feel as though I'm okay with that because I just need to hope that the top of my deck is a Sigil so I can cast 2 things next turn. That definitely hurts. So my choices, I can play the Sprite. I'd probably play the Sprite on the Silver Wing, so at least that way my Sky Snapper isn't absolutely nothing. I could play the Piercing Shot on the Silver Wing, saving the Sprite for the Paladin after I take plausibly 8 points of damage, which is a lot because this will be becoming a 3/3 if he happens to draw a Sigil next turn. Otherwise, if I play the Sprite now... Yep, mate. I'll think through this turn. Otherwise, if I play the Sprite right now, and he attacks in, I'm probably going to have to block anyway. But I'd rather have the cheaper spell for next turn in case I do draw my Sigil. It's not great at all, but we'll do the best we can with our power. Yeah, I think even though that's a less effective attack, okay, we'll take value where we can get it. I know it opens up the Avenger again, which I can deal with a Piercing Shot, and if I'm really lucky, I'll get that second power this turn, so that way I can cast Lightning Strike to deal with his Bright Mace Pally. But the name of the game here is just staying alive. That's not what we needed. So my Sky Snap is going to attack in and die. Unless I use my Piercing Shot. I don't think I want to use my Piercing Shot here. If he attacks in and dies, he's attacking for 4, 6, 8. If I hold back 1 blocker, he'll attack for 6. If I Wisdom of the Elders and I get a power and a torch, I can torch something, he'll still attack for 6, so yeah. Unfortunately, I got screwed out of that game against an opponent's deck that I feel like I pretty comfortably could have beaten. But that is part of the nature of playing Eternal, and it's one of the catches of only playing 1 matchup against your opponent rather than 3. It's one of the reasons why I feel as though you can have decks that deserve a lot better than they get. This hand is short on power again. I don't have a low enough curve to make the most of it, so it's a relatively easy redraw. Oh wow, thanks deck. I love what you've given me. Well folks, I kind of hoped that I could show you a sweet deck. Evidently, RNG might have different plans for me. I'm now hoping that I draw a runner sigils. Both of them have to be Primal sigils. That's terrible for me because I'm already flooded as is. Yeah, I think we're going to be hoping that we get some normal matches after this. I feel as though the first match you could see what a deck looks like when it gets treated well. And we've seen the whole spectrum of eternal matches. You've seen what happens when you have an actual match, you see what happens when a deck gets screwed, and you see probably now what happens when a deck gets flooded. I wouldn't be happy using my Magma Javelin on the Lothrari Ranger, but I can't afford to be taking this much damage whilst the rest of my hand does absolutely nothing. Yeah, sorry Windrake, I'd like to give you a little bit of competition, but I don't think this is going to happen. Next turn we can cast the Feln Stranger. That'll give me my first Primal influence. And we'll go from there. He's got 2 creatures in his hand at least because of twinning, one of which has +1/+1. Yeah, we're in a tight spot, and that's what happens when your first card that you cast is on turn 4. Okay, so I think he's definitely twinned the other Determined Stranger. So my options here is I can play my Fire Sigil now, I can play out, I still have a blue to give a creature Levitate, which could allow me to get my Arcana Outlaw in. It's been this unusual trend recently that people always want to be saying hello when they feel like you're taking too long to think. And I think that's a bit presumptive. I don't think people have a right to say you're taking too long. They have no idea of what the quality of your hand is. I think if we draw a Primal Sigil this turn or next, we're still in this game. We're not in a great spot, but we'll still be in the game. Because we can refill our hand, hopefully stabilize the board, and we haven't lost too much health. We still have 4/5 of our original total, so fortunately our opponent has been relatively slow developing as well. But yeah, we have our Shadow influence, so that if we get our stash, we can get our value out of it. And yeah, there you go, I was correct, so that's definitely what he did choose to twin. And because it's so important for me to get the Primal, well, I've got a choice. I can either use the Levitate for the Outlaw to get a Warcry in, or I can use the Levitate now to cycle. I feel as though the benefit of me using it on the Outlaw is that I'll still be able to use one of my Wisdom of the Elders and have whatever I need to play. So I think we can afford to sit and wait here. I think well, so my options are I can play the Ice Sprite now, lock down one of his biggest stranger, knowing that they're the 2 creatures he had off twinning. And then I can attack Offering and exchange, but I think I'm still behind, so I think I'd rather play more conservatively than that. Instead, we'll get my Warcry in, we'll see if they have a stop, which they don't. And we'll lock him down and sit back. And keep hoping that we get that Primal. We have 8 Primal Sigils in the deck, and we have one more Stranger. If I do the double block, I kill one of his. He gets released as a 4-power creature. Piercing Shot isn't a fast spell. So no, I think we just take 4 here. I now have a juicy target for my Piercing Shot. He could choose to 2-for-1 himself with my Outlaw. I don't think I want to let him. I could play my Serpent Trainer here. It's more mana efficient. But I think instead we'll kill the Desperado, we'll hold back the Film to represent a block on the Amethyst, and we'll get in. There's no point holding these guys back if I'm not planning on blocking with them. Next turn we'll definitely be playing the Serpent Trader and offering up a double block over here. And I might even be considering holding the Outlaw back. I think right now it's more important that I get my Serpent Trainer on the table. I think I can Wisdom later. And yeah, my goal is just to slow everything down. If I play my Serpent Trainer and he attacks with everyone, I need to make the choice of whether I want to block Twilight Raptor now or offer a double block. I think for that reason I'm not going to attack in with the Outlaw this turn. Because if I attack in and he attacks with everyone, he can still get 4 damage through on me by forcing uncomfortable blocks. And the minute I get a chance to cast these Wisdoms of the Elders, I'm back in the game. So yeah, I definitely think I need to sit back, even though I would have liked that extra Warcry. And if it comes to it, I'm happy to do a double block over here and lose my Outlaw. My life is much more important than her. And this also allows me to play around if he has a piece of removal. Like, yeah, back on the hellos. I get it. Like, I'm waiting right now. And we're playing a digital game. You want to go as fast as possible. But this is a complex game. And it requires a lot of thinking. And sometimes you have those turns where you just go into the tank. And I've said a few times, I have a background in Magic. And it's not like Magic where you're both sharing the same time pool. Instead, you get given your allocated amount of time that the devs have decided is appropriate. And so I think any kind of rushing, I just don't think is super appropriate. I could attack in with my Serpent Trainer. He'd double block. I can do 2 damage. No, actually, I don't have quite enough. I need 7 points of damage there. So instead, we'll just cast Wisdom of the Elder. Happy to cast it now because I'd rather see what cards are available to me. And do I want to do the same again? Is there anything that's got a 1 converted mana cost that I care about? Another torch, but I can cast my current torch anyway. No, I think I'd rather represent having more removal, more spells in my hand, and then play Wisdom in his end step. Okay, so there was a stop there, which is important to recognize. So I think what I want to do here is I can think about using my torch. If I'm to torch his Raptor and put a Warhelm on my Serpent Trainer, that forces him to chump block or to let me get in. I feel as though this is one of my high torch priorities anyway. Definitely has a trick of some description. That much is certain. I think I want to play it conservatively this turn. I could go all in. Like, I could put Warhelm on the Serpent Trainer. I could attack in, forcing the chump or giving myself a 2-2. But I think in that scenario, I could get myself into trouble. If I play the Ice Sprite here and I attack with the Serpent Trainer, I get a second 2-2. And if I wanted to, I could Warhelm here and attack. That'd leave me with 2 Ice Fairies that I don't want to block with, plus a Feln Stranger. I could also Cobalt Acolyte, so I have... Yeah, I think this is the turn where I need to turn the corner. What stops could he have? He could have Lightning Strike. Perhaps I'll just play conservative for one more turn. And whilst I don't think, like, he doesn't have a Lightning Storm in his hand, but I have a much more dominant board position right now. There's no point in me throwing it away. Because if he is to cast Lightning Storm, I won't have a lot of creatures that will survive it. What trick have you got? Yep. I'm actually really happy flushing that out of his hand. The reason why is if that was in his hand and I had my guard down with any of my creatures, that could have represented a lot of damage and a lot of problem for me. He's still holding up Lightning Strike, so I feel as I still need to respect it. If I attack for 7, he's on 8. If I attack for 6, he goes to 9 if I choose not to respect it, but that could open up these guys. So perhaps the only one I'll attack with is with this Ice Sprite. The risk of it dying, it doesn't have the same horrific outcome for me. So I think he's trying to decide whether he needs to chump or not. I think we'll take that option out of the equation for next time. So all I want to do right now is not draw a sigil. And considering I've done a lot of that, I don't think that's a huge ask. On the swing back I have 7, 8, 9, so it's not enough for lethal. Yeah, if we can just draw one creature to start to deal with that other stranger, then we're in a very good spot. And as you can see, if he had this quick draw available, I'd be in a very, very nasty position indeed. This is holding back his Ageless Mentor. It's also allowing me to represent a much faster clock on the return. The cards that he could have that could punish me are basically more copies of Rapid Shot. It is a common, but I don't think I saw a stop before, so unless he's top decked it, I'm okay. So I think we sit back for this one. Getting ready to chump if we get a second creature out. Or to double block. Okay, so if we attack with the team, we'll be doing 7, 8, 9 damage. We only need to be doing 7 to menace lethal. In fact, we could even just do 6 and hold back. That way the 4/4 can block here, can chump, and I've got lethal on the next turn. See, this will become a 5/5 because it hasn't seen... Oh, 6/6 because it hasn't seen those strangers yet, so that's great news. So yeah, we'll hold him back so he can block the Ageless Mentor. If we attack with 5, it puts him on 9. We have 9 for the next turn. Actually, even if I have to block with this Ice Sprite, I'm okay with it because it will open it up on a turn that he can't swing back for. So if we get him for 9, it puts him on 5. And we have blockers to cover him with lethal on the swing back. So long as he doesn't find a flyer. And yeah, that's the one that turns guys into cards. So I feel as though we should be right, because by the time he spent that extra 2, unless he gets something like the 1-3 flyer, I think we have this. Which is a relief. When I saw that opening hand, I thought I was gone for all money. But it just goes to show how powerful Wisdom of the Elders are. The opportunity for me to have drawn 2 extra cards over him has been big. I think the other big role player has also been the Rakano Outlaw. To be able to get in so frequently and to be upgrading all of my little guys has been quite useful. But yeah, I'm really actually pleased that we had this game in this video series, because I think one of the other things about Who's on the Beatdown, the article that I was referring to earlier, is trying to work out when you can turn that corner. There's always that fulcrum moment where all of a sudden you're no longer on defense, you've actually hit a point of equilibrium, and that's your opportunity to get aggressive. It's plausible that I might have done it 1 turn too slow. I could definitely pay that. And I don't think I could have waited another turn beyond what I did, as we saw with him beginning to get the bigger creatures out. But yeah, no, I enjoyed that. I feel as though this deck has represented what I was hoping to do with its plan in its construction. And indeed, it would have been nice even if we saw the stash there, so you could have seen the idea of that endgame going through. So yeah, Skycrag Fliers, there you go. Underappreciated gem in very, very rare circumstances. Thanks for watching the video. I'm looking forward to jumping straight into my next 3 matches. Down here in Australia, I'm waiting for a 40-degree day. 40 degrees is over 100 Fahrenheit, in case you're not one of those who uses the Celsius. So I'm trying to get through as many games as possible before it gets stupidly, stupidly hot. So yeah, join me in a couple of minutes as we go through games 4 to 6 and see whether the Skycrag Flyers continue to live up to their expectations. Have a good one.